Oh, hello there, my sweet friend. Have I got 2025 predictions for you? Oh, yes, I do. Now, let me just tell you that they are a little bit doom and gloom, but I am also letting you know how to adapt because things are changing rapidly. And luckily for you, you are blessed because I'm an observer and because I am kind of like, you might not pick up this from listening to the podcast, but if you were to see me at a gathering with lots of people, I am the weirdo in the corner observing everybody else. So because I am the weirdo in the corner observing everybody else, I see what nobody else sees. So the point is you are blessed because the things that I'm about to share with you are things that I can see are trends that I have been honestly talking to you about for a little hot minute now, but now like these things are coming to pass. So without further ado, I'm just going to get it out of the way now because it's going to come up. The little motherly side of me who says, oh, I told you so. She might come out. Okay, just letting you know. But okay, now for real, without further ado, let's talk about 2025 podcast predictions. So number one, attention spans will decline further. Yes. So if our attention spans were not bad enough as it is, they are going to get worse. So if you're not starting your podcast with a very strong hook and letting people know that they're in for something right away, people are just going to bounce. Okay. So if you're going to start a podcast, right? Like I come to your show and I want to learn how to grow on Instagram in 2025. And you're going on and on and on about something that has nothing to do with what I'm there for, and it is the first time I'm listening to your podcast episode, I'm going to bounce, okay? Because I ain't got no time for this, okay? So how to adapt to the ever declining attention span is by you starting with a very strong hook and being to the point. Remember that people are landing on your episode, maybe for the 5th time to 10th time, but maybe she's landing on her podcast or he's landing on her podcast for the first time. So you need to keep that in mind. I've talked to you about this before on this podcast episode in 2025. Things are getting real, my love. Okay, prediction number 2. Short form podcast episodes will have a surge. So again, those mentoring episodes, they will have a place at a time. Okay, so we're here for it. If that is the style that you're going, right? Listen. Our homeboy, Joe Rogan, he's not going to change his format. Okay, he's not. But he's also Joe Rogan. He's like the number one podcaster. Okay, so let's not compare yourself to Joe Rogan because you're not Joe Rogan. But what I'm trying to get at is if you have those podcasts where it's more conversational and laid back, and that is how you do it. Maybe you are doing this podcast with a friend or you're doing interviews. That's okay. You keep at it. However, for me, for example, I am a solo podcaster. And I love that for me, by the way. And if you are a solo podcaster like I am, please just be to the point, give value and bounce. Don't be here just, going on and on and on about something that doesn't apply because people are just not here for it. So again, the prediction is that shorter podcasts are going to dominate and just go there. So how to adapt to this is by you just preparing for your podcast episodes, by you actually knowing what you're going to be talking about. I am not a fan whatsoever of scripting your podcast episodes. I'm very open about that. And regardless, I have created a guide that I teach people how to script should they choose to script. But regardless, whether you script or not, I always recommend that you go into your podcast episode with a plan. So what I do is I have bullet points and I go off those bullet points because listen, I can get off on tangents like a boss. Okay, I'm very good at it. So just adapt. Just start planning out your episodes a little bit better so that you can, bada bing, bada boom, get the stuff done and not keep people hooked forever and ever. Amen. Because ain't nobody got time for that. Okay. Number 3 is that discovery is going to be a big bottleneck. So if you think that you can just post your episode and people will come, guess what? It's not happening because there are over 5 million podcasts alive and well in this podcasting world. So how are you going to stand out, you ask? SEO. And that is my bread and butter. I talk about SEO. And if you thought that SEO was not going to be part of this prediction, you're wrong. Of course it is. So I've got a jillion resources on podcasting SEO. Whatever resource I mentioned in this episode, I will leave linked for you down below so you can go ahead and dive in and really learn how to master SEO because it's not that complicated. It's not, okay? I got your back. but you're going to need to SEO optimize your podcast titles, your descriptions, everything. You're going to need to learn how to SEO optimize your podcast. Brace yourself for this one, okay? This one is a hard one to chew, but AI-generated podcasts will disrupt the space. Now, here's the thing. We have all been loving ChatGPT, right? And like all the other AI things and AI photos and AI this and AI that. Well, guess what? 2025 is the year that things are going to start to bite our booties because people are just going to pump out episodes left and right because here's what they're going to do. They're going to go on ChatGPT and get a script for a podcast episode, and then they're going to go to whatever other AI and they're going to plug in that script, and AI is going to mimic their voice, and bada bing, bada boom, they have a podcast episode out. So the broskies are going to have a field day with this. They're going to have podcast episodes coming out on the daily. And basically, if you cannot differentiate yourself, you're going to be replaced by AI. It's here. It's happening. All the movies we've been watching, it's coming true. Okay. I guess actually, no, 2025 is the beginning of the end, honestly. But remember what I said in the beginning, it was going to be doom and gloom. Okay. But how do you stay ahead of the game is you, in a world where AI is taking over, you need to stay human. Okay. The signature, like how we know that a creator exists is because we are creative people, and you're going to need to tap into creativity, and you're going to need to bring your creativity into what it is that you do, because AI cannot be creative, but you can. So in a world that is going crazy for AI, you need to ask yourself, how can I be more human? How can I be more myself? How can I be authentic? And I know it's so overplayed, like, oh, be authentic, be yourself. What does it even mean? Like, nobody knows. But you're going to need to be more you and more human and bring that into your podcast episodes, because otherwise AI is going to take over. Like the movies we saw as kids. Yeah, it's coming true. Prediction number 5. The fatigue of subscribing to a bunch of podcasts are going to just catch up to us. So if your podcast is not super helpful and it's not something that people love, then people are just going to unsubscribe, because we cannot subscribe to 10,000 podcast episodes, okay? So it used to be like that people would be committed to 7 shows. That'll probably shrink down to a whole lot, because we're so busy, and with short form content and all different types of content out there, people just don't have the time anymore. So just the way for you to be ahead of the game is to make sure that you're giving values, is to make sure that people love who you are and that you're not wasting their time, because people are going to be clearing out their subscriptions left and right. And that brings me to my next point. If you have a subscription model podcast where your things are behind a paywall, this is the year that people are going to start unsubscribing left and right, because again, people are paying for subscriptions for everything, and people are just going to be like, oh man, like, is this even worth it? So you need to be able to adapt. So offer free trials. For example, the other day I was listening to this person, and I basically went, when I really want to learn about something, I go down this like really deep rabbit hole, like nobody can. Like I am a research ninja by now. And I was listening to this guy. It was something Bible related. And I went to this podcast because he was a guest on this podcast. So I'm listening, I'm enjoying what he's saying, but then the episode cuts at 15 minutes. And in order for me to listen to the whole episode, I have to pay to listen. Now, I was not going to pay to listen, because this was the first time that I was listening to this particular podcast. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay. You know, I can figure this stuff out in a different way. So if this is you, if you do have a subscription model podcast, give people the option of having a free trial. And then during the free trial, you have to be smart about how you're going to hook people in, right? Because in this particular instance, I was going after that one creator. But if you say, if you are the podcast host, right, who has your stuff in a subscription model like Patreon or whatever, when people have to pay to listen to the full content, you need to say, okay, if you like this episode with so-and-so, you're going to love going down this rabbit hole with this person and that person and that person, you know? So you need to give people a reason to stay, because otherwise, if you just put your episodes behind a paywall, people like me who are like, I am paying for a subscription, they're not going to subscribe. So you have to make it easy for people to commit to you. So you got to stay ahead of the curve here, my love. Prediction number 6, video podcasts. Oof, video podcasts. You heard me right. So they're becoming very, very popular. And I hate to say it, but it's a thing. So I'm going to tell you how I am going to adapt to this and what I even told my clients. Now, keep in mind that if you love video and that is your thing, like you do that. We're so here for it. But for me, while I have no problem showing up on video, going live, like I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. My biggest problem right now is that I cannot remember the last time I brushed my hair because, I'm a homeschooling mom of 2 kids and I have a baby and life is busy to say the least. So, like right now, I'm pretty sure I've puked on my shirt and like, listen, that's just life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot walk around all dolled up all day because, like I'm busy. I'm with my kids all day long, So I choose not to do video because if I'm going to show up on video with like messy hair and puked on shirts and stuff like that, that's just not the vibe. Okay. So I am going to continue to just do audio because that's what I'm here for. That's how I got into podcasting in the first place, was because it was easy and I enjoyed it and it was my thing. So if this is you and for whatever reason you're not here for video, I would say commit until maybe June of 2025. And if you're seeing that, things are feeling like a little bit stagnant, you're not seeing the growth, then consider video, consider adding video. Okay, this is the same advice that I gave to a client of mine. And I could have been like, oh yeah, you must do video because at the end of the day, in my agency, we do videos, or like we upload everything on YouTube and you optimize for YouTube and the thumbnails and all the things. And I could have been like, yes, 100%, you have to do video. Now, this is one of those things that I need you to balance strategy with your soul. So if you really hate video and video is just not something that you enjoy, hold off on it. It's okay. It's just one of those things that I don't want you to get FOMO here. So there are other ways for you to show up on video, by the way. If you don't want to do the whole thing on YouTube and put up your videos over there, your video podcast, you can always show up on Instagram or whatever, or you can do what I do, which is the audio only podcast. Like I'm just here for it. And I just know that here's the thing. Maybe 2025 is not the year where this is going to happen, but maybe 2026 will be the year that audio only will make a full, huge comeback because trends are cyclical. And remember when shorts came out, like any short form content, like TikTok or Reels or whatever, and YouTube shorts, they were kind of like plain Jane, right? Like you just put up your content on the interwebs and like all these different platforms and it was great. But then all of a sudden it became like this motion picture kind of production where there's B-roll and there's music and there's like crazy sounds and whatever. And it wasn't that simple anymore. So now people are like tired of the overproduced shorts and they're liking simpler shorts. And when I say shorts, I'm talking about shorts and Reels and TikToks and all the short form videos, right? So things are cyclical. So again, that should give you a little bit of hope that everybody being on video will cause a video burnout eventually. Plus, you cannot drive and like watch a video. I mean, hopefully you're not, unless you have a Tesla, but still I would like keep my eyes on the road. But the point I'm trying to make is that's the whole beauty of podcasting, is that you can download, or you don't have to look at anything. You can just be on a walk or be on a drive or be on an airplane and listen to a podcast. So I am not changing anything there. Particularly, like I ain't nobody got time for that. Just be super honest. Okay, the next one. So the next one is not doom and gloom. The next one is actually great for you if you speak a second language. So non-English podcasts, I believe, will see a huge growth in the podcasting world. So for me, for example, I actually see this firsthand because I can see that people tuning in to my podcast are from Brazil. Oi, tudo bem? So if you don't know, I'm actually Brazilian. So I would love to help you for listening to me because I know you're listening. So let's work together. But yes, people from other countries have always tuned in to my show. But I definitely see an uptick in other countries of people tuning in to the strategies I'm sharing and things like that. So the point I'm trying to make is if you speak another language, now is the time for you to double down on that and launch the podcast. We have not launched it yet, but yes, we're just so here for it because, trends, of course, they pick up in the United States first and then they pick up everywhere else. And I do feel like podcasting is one of those things that hasn't really taken off in other countries. Like I live in Central America and people still don't know, like when I tell people that I'm a podcaster, they're like, what? So I have to explain it to them, which I know can happen in the United States too. But I think that the point is people in other countries are finally like picking up on that. So, the good news is if you do have a podcast in a language that is not English, 2025 will be your year. So just make sure that you do what I tell you to do, focus on the SEO and like other things that I talk about, and it's going to grow. Okay, let's go to number 8, monetization. Okay, so for monetization, you got to go niche. So if you're a general podcast and you're talking about bada bing, bada boom, bada blee, bada blah, people are not here for that. Okay, you have to be super hyper specific about what it is that you're talking about. Like, listen, my love, I have a hyper specific podcast. My podcast is Organic Marketing Simplified for Podcasters. It is hyper specific. And if you don't have a hyper specific podcast, people are going to bounce. Okay, people are going to be like, peace out. I don't have time for this. So it's not the time to be a generalist. Right now is the time for you to be super niche and narrow down your focus so that you can actually monetize your podcast. Because if you're too general, if you're too bloody blah, people are going to bounce. And let me just tell you that on my podcast, I talk a lot about SEO and like how to grow podcasts and things like that. And you would think that people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this girl, because I feel like I'm tired of myself. And that's not it at all. Like people really do love that I give very hyper specific. Like one of the number one pieces of feedback that I get is that I love how specific you are on podcast SEO. That is your thing. Like you don't deviate from that. So that just goes to show you that if you are afraid of niching down, don't be, because people do love a niche. So there's that. Okay, number 9, we're here for selling. Like speaking of monetization, let's talk about selling on the podcast. So if you have a podcast that is just a disguised cold pitch, it's not going to do well. So what you have to do is make sure that you're giving value, and you can still talk about your offers. I will always talk about my offers. I will always let you know all the different ways that you can work with me. I will let you know about many courses that I have or whatever I have for sale. But if you have a podcast where people tune in to that episode and the whole episode is one big sales pitch, right? Like let's say you tune into my podcast because the title says how to grow your podcast in 2025. And instead of you listening to me actually give you strategies on how to grow your podcast in 2025, the whole episode is me talking about how to work with me. You would be very angry, and people do that. People definitely use their podcast as a cold pitch, and like those days are finally over. Like, can we just praise the creator for that? Because ain't nobody got time for this. So give value. And if you're like, okay, how do I do this? I would recommend that you go back and listen to one of my latest podcast episodes, which came out 2 weeks ago. So let me see I'm actually looking up right now as we speak. What is the episode number so that you can go ahead and check it out. And I will leave it linked in the show notes down below. So if you go back on the episode that launched November 27th, episode 407, how to upgrade your podcast and get more downloads in just 2 hours, I gave value, but I also sold in that podcast episode. And there I say that episode is one of the episodes that I sold more. It was more of a hard sale. Like I never usually sell that much on a podcast episode, but I was on fire that day and I was like, I'm doing this. So that is how you can sell. And then all of my podcast episodes, I'm always telling something. Have you noticed? Wink, wink. So the point is you need to build trust with your people and actually give them value, and then infuse your offers in. The whole thing of, how to do XYZ, and then people tune into the episode and it's just you selling and like zero value. Those days are over. Okay, my love, let's move on to prediction number 10. Your lead magnets, they need to evolve. So if you have just like generic freebies, again, like just staying wishy-washy, kind of staying vanilla, people are not here for that. People want the flavor, okay? Give them the chocolate or the chocolate chip mint or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like the point is, you have to be super specific because, come on, are we all not burned out from freebies that we get that we don't even open anymore? Like a freebie sounds really good, and then like you forget to open it because we're so burned out. I mean, who does not have a folder in their computer with like freebies that they haven't even opened? Like this is the freebie graveyard. So yeah, you have to be super specific with what you're creating. Give a ton of value because things are getting super competitive. That's what I'm going to say about that. And of course, talk about your freebies on your podcast episode, but freebies are going to have to evolve. Maybe your freebie becomes a community. Like people are just going to really have to think outside of the box for this one because the whole lead magnet thing, it's just like, it's getting harder and harder to grow an email list. You have to work harder. So give people a reason to actually want to get in your freebie or your community or whatever. Okay, let's talk about number 11. Okay, number 11 is a big one. So you can be, all positive about money, that money loves you and this and that and the other, and you're into whatever money love story that you're into. But please be realistic, because if you don't see that the economy is not doing well and it hasn't been for a while, like what planet do you live on? Because here's the thing, an economic shift, like to the downside, like a downshift, could change everything, right? So in 2020, when we all got locked down and people were selling everything left and right, everybody was buying things, because we had all the time to stay home and whatever, right? If something happens crazy, like another economic thing happens, and please let it not be another pandemic. But let's say something crazy happens to the economy next time around, which, let's face it, 2025 could be the year. People are not going to be so quick to just buy everything left and right. People have been more cautious about how they spend their money. So the antidote for this is for you to have a variety of ways to work with you, for something low ticket, something high ticket, things in between. I think this whole thing of like, oh, I only charge high ticket because I am premium and like, if you don't know my position on that, I'm not here for that. I think you should definitely have a wide range of offers and a wide range of ways for people to work with you. Like the lowest offer I have is $24, and I'll leave the link for you down below. It is like such a juicy offer. It is so good. And the highest thing I have is like $6,000, and I have everything else in between. And let me just tell you, I sell every single one of them because I want to help people at whatever capacity, right? So the podcast is here for free. And then I have all these different ways that you can work with me starting at $24. So the point is, you need to be able to diversify your income, right? Like people think that when we diversify our income, we're talking about I have a business and then I have real estate and then I have some money in stocks and I have that thing on the side. And what I'm saying here is within your business, you have to have different ways to monetize your business. So you could have different types of offers, maybe affiliate offers or whatever the case may be, but you need to have different ways that you monetize your business. So do not just depend on one. Okay. Moving on to prediction número 12, burnout. We are talking about burnout. So burnout, it's going to force people to just pivot or quit because people are just getting to the point. Like, remember what I said about AI, that AI is taking over. And listen, like AI influencers, I logged into Instagram the other day and I was looking for a business and I needed to go on the explore page so I could search. And like, I got distracted because who doesn't? And like, I feel like I lost a couple neurons because of the type of content that Instagram was suggesting to me. But it's crazy, all this AI generated content, like it looks super real and you have to really pay attention to what's being put out because it's obviously AI. But the point is people enjoy that kind of stuff and they make it funny, they make it cute, they make it whatever. And the point is, because AI allows you to create so much content and put it out into, the interwebs, people are going to burn out and people are going to pivot and people are going to quit. So, how does that translate in the podcasting world is that you need to batch your episodes, stay ahead of the game. You need to stay consistent. You need to be the human version of you. You need to really bring up your A game. And that's how you're going to avoid burnout and pick your battles wisely, right? So for me, I know what I like to do in business and I know what I do not like to do in business. For me, I love the podcasting. I love the audio only experience and I'm so here for it. I know my limits and every once in a while, I like to experiment with different things, but I always go back to, okay, the minute that this feels like a burden I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. So there have been times where I'm like, okay, let me fiddle with Instagram for a second. And I do, and I have fun. And then like 5 reels later, I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I'm done. I'm out, So know your limits. Stop the thing that you have to, be everything for everyone, everywhere, every time. Like, we're not here for that, because burnout will just cause you to quit. That's point blank what's going to happen. So the other thing too on this point is you need to set realistic goals for your podcast, and you need to focus on quality over quantity. Okay, focus on quality over quantity. You notice I show up on my podcast once a week, and guess what? It works extremely well for me. Okay, I'm not bombarding my people with a bunch of content, and people enjoy what I have to say. And I could just show up more times than I have in the past, but right now this works really well for me, where I'm at in the season of life, and for my listeners as well. So be mindful of that. FOMO, like not having FOMO, will go a long way for you in 2025. Okay, let's go to prediction number 13. Okay, audience fatigue. And I've already touched about this previously, but I just want to give like a little bit of a different angle, right? So people are not just fatigued from like listening to a bunch of podcasts, right? But it's the fatigue of being bombarded with things on Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube and LinkedIn and X and whatever other platform is out there, right? So how do you combat that? Is by you being a person of value. Do not be a fluffy person, okay? You have to think of people. Like, if you and I were having a conversation, like in person, like if we're sitting in the empty chair in front of me right now in my office, I would want to pour into you and give you value, and not just talk about random things that don't add anything to anybody. So how to avoid the audience fatigue that your people are going to suffer in 2025 is by being a value-driven person. Is by not giving fluff. And like, there's a trend in marketing that uses like made up this hyper FOMO inducing terms that people just slap a TM on for trademark and like call it their thing, So people are like getting really sick and tired of that, because they're noticing that it doesn't really bring any results. Like, yeah, you feel the hype and you feel good, but then like it's not sustainable. So don't be one of those people. Be those people that actually give value and add something into a person's life. Like treat others as you want to be treated. Like, can't go wrong with that. So respect your audience's time and cut out the fluff. Just give them what they came to your podcast for and your content in general. Okay, number 14. So this one is a double-edged sword, okay? Because if you have patience, this will pay off. Because in 2025, I guarantee you the pod fade will be worse than ever. So if you don't know pod fade is when people start a podcast and then like 3, 4, 5, 10 episodes later, they're like, okay, I'm out. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Why? Because podcasting is a long-term game, and people are just not patient. People are just here for the right here, right now. And people don't want to wait. And in 2025, pod fade, like I said, will be like at an all-time high. Dare I say that fewer than 10% of podcasts will last a year. And like, gosh, I really do honestly think it'll be a whole lot less than that, because people just don't want to commit. So if you are somebody who's patient, then 2025 will be your year, because of all the things that I said. So while I did say that these predictions were a little bit doom and gloom, like if you are savvy, you're going to look at this and be like, oh, okay, they do sound doom and gloom, but also like super helpful, because everybody's going to be tired of the AI thing, and people are going to quit, and all the fatigue and all this going on. Like, I get to be myself and show up, and I'm patient, and I will outlast everybody else. So, I have been podcasting since May of 2020. It's been a hot minute, and I don't foresee myself stopping anytime soon, unless the Heavenly Father tells me otherwise. But I mean, how many other podcasters do you see just standing the test of time, right? Like, and I'm talking podcasters within the realm of podcasters that I'm in, right? Like, I'm not a huge podcaster. I'm not a household name. I am not Jenna Kutcher or Amy Porterfield or whoever, right, in this online marketing space, okay? And yeah, they stay on forever and ever because like it's a huge funnel for them. But for creators like myself, if people don't know what they're doing and they're being too general and they're not being patient, like they quit. They're just like, I'm out. This ain't for me. I'm going to go try my luck in TikTok or whatever, So how do you avoid pod fade is you need to make sure that, again, it goes back to giving value, you're staying consistent, you're thinking about your listener, right? So whenever I create my podcast episodes, I have like one very specific person that I create this podcast episode for. Like I'm thinking about this one person and I create my episodes for her. You need to be the same. And that's how you're going to avoid pod fade. And that's how you can survive this kind of drought and look at it as an opportunity. Okay, so what are you going to do with all this information that you have in front of you? There's a lot at stake here, honestly, and you're going to need to have clarity on what it is that you're doing. You're going to need to stay consistent, and you're going to need to stay adaptable. If you need help with any area, in your podcasting journey, just know that I own a podcast marketing agency. If you need somebody to take the load off of your hands and actually have like human beings work on your stuff, we're here for you. And if you just want to tackle things on your own, I have a bunch of resources that I will leave linked for you down in the show notes that you can go ahead and grab. I am obsessed. I don't like the word obsessed, but I don't know what else to like switch it to. So we're going to use obsessed for now, but I am currently obsessed with my $24 bundle offer because it's over 12 resources that will help you upgrade your podcast. And it's so good. And it might just be the thing that you need to really upgrade your podcast, like I said. And simple tweaks go a long way in this podcasting world because the thing of it is, and you have heard me say this before, is that people just like to look left and right and to see, what so-and-so is doing and what that person is doing and whatever. And they like to copy what everybody else is doing. And of course, they just end up burning out because they don't understand the strategy behind it. And the strategy that somebody else is using is for that specific person. It's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, So my products allow you to pull out the best of you into what it is that you do so that you can connect with your ideal clients, like really the clients that are meant to work with you. And that is what I teach you inside of my programs, which again, I will leave linked for you down below. I really hope that this episode has been helpful, and please share it. Share with your podcaster friend so that they know how to adapt in 2025. Until next time, may you find God's love, peace, grace, and mercy, and I'll see you then. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Organic Marketing Simplified for Podcasters. If you're ready to take your podcast to the next level, let's work together. I offer a group coaching program called the Profitable Podcast Blueprint, where you have lifetime access not only to the program itself and all updates, but also to me inside of a group coaching container. So you also have access to other podcasters that you can network with. So that's one way that we can work together. I also own a podcast marketing and production agency. So if all you want to do is to record your episodes and send it to us and have us do all the back work for you while making sure that your show is getting all the visibility it deserves, then that's another way that we can work together. And finally, I have one-on-one coaching. So come hang out with me. Go to julianabarbati.com for all the information, and I cannot wait to see you back here next week.